Welcome to the What Paramedics Want podcast series of Inside EMS, sponsored by Pulsara. Whether replacing radio reports, alerting specialty teams, or managing mass casualty incidents, Pulsara simplifies communication, one tool every day, regardless of the event. Well, here it is. Once again, it's time to go Inside EMS. I am your host, Chris Cebollero, and with me always, with that perfect smile, is the one they call Kelly Grayson. Kelly Grayson, KG, how you doing?
I'm good, brother. I'm good. It's starting to get fall weather up here in the North Country, and my neck is swelling up a little bit like a big buck in rut. So I got to go out and do some hunting, man. I'm gonna go crazy.
When's hunting season? It's November.
They're all open right now. Gun season's open. Duck and goose season are open. In fact, I think I'm going goose hunting Saturday afternoon. And next month I'm going at the Texas EMS conference. I'm gonna hunt ducks and sandhill cranes over Thanksgiving Day weekend. So
yeah, very cool.
Can't wait.
Yeah, you seem excited. So
yeah.
Kelly, as we think about shows, we often hear from our listeners, and one listener, what's his name? Hang on one second. I forgot to pull it up. Oh, his name is Buddy from Syracuse, New York, is asking us. We keep talking about the man of the hour, too sweet to be sour.
He's the man of the I have the power.
And what does it come from? What does it mean? So, Buddy, this is for you all the way in Syracuse, New York. Back in the late 70s, 1979, there was a song called The Adventures of Super Rhyme, which was kind of in the genre of the reality raps, as Dr. Dre called it, similar to that of Rapper's Delight. And The Adventures of Super Rhymes is a rap song, and I forget the guy's name. Look it up for me, Kelly, as I'm talking. The Adventures of Super Rhymes, something Spicer. But it's about 15 minutes long. And at the time when this came out, you were either a rock fan or you were a disco fan. Well, the girl I was dating was a disco fan.
Jimmy Spicer.
And she bet me that I couldn't learn the whole song in a week, and I did. So it's still fresh in my mind. So if you're out there, Patty, know that I still know the words of this song because of you. But that's where it comes from, buddy. So thanks for your question.
Yeah.
But another question,
Chris, when people have to ask you about your pop culture references,
stop talking about them.
We just need new pop culture references for the TikTok generation.
And one of the things Kelly and I have talked about is Kelly and I are very, very notorious of talking in movie quotes.
Yep.
And one of the things that we're trying to figure out is to do a show in just movie quotes. So I don't know what that's going to look like, team.
You can't handle the truth.
It's harder than
deep down in places you don't talk about at parties. You want me on that wall. You need me. I'm sorry.
On that wall. All right.
Got carried away.
But we will try to figure that out, and then we'll have to make reference so everybody knows the movies and the quotes.
Oh yeah.
But one of the answers one of the emails we did get, which I thought was very interesting, is we talk about leadership and we talk about my leadership style, and the show is always based on two paramedics sitting in the truck, and Kelly takes the paramedic side, and I take the leader side. And the question really came out that it talked about, and they didn't want their name brought up by any, so that's why I'm not saying where it came from. I get maybe New Mexico. I could say it's New Mexico, but I won't turn the writer out. But it was, how do you know that you have a bad manager? And it was really, really interesting. I mean, I think you would know if you had a bad manager, but I do have something that I teach, the 10 signs of a bad manager and the 10 signs of a bad employee. So today, I think we're going to talk about the 10 signs of a bad manager. And then, Kelly, in another show, we should probably just talk about the 10 signs of a bad employee. But when we start to think about a bad manager, I want you to use this as a gauge.
Yep.
Who is the best leader you ever worked for? And what characteristics did those people have? And then who is the worst leader you ever worked for? And what were the characteristics that they had? And you learn things from both good leaders and bad leaders. But I have set out 10 traits and 10 signs of a bad manager that we're going to talk about. But Kelly, what's your experience with bad managers?
There are plenty of them. In fact, most EMS managers, I won't say most EMS managers, but we have in this profession way too many managers, not enough leaders. And the two are not mutually incompatible. The differences in how they view their job and view their subordinates and their role. You talk about, servant leadership and helping your people be the best they can be. That's the epitome of leadership. But all too many believe that the way to get things done is to bludgeon people into submission with the policy and procedure manual. And the only feedback they get is negative, and you just crack the whip. And it doesn't work that way. We have expended so much time talking about leadership. To me, it's still simple. Exactly what you said before. You've had good leaders, you've had bad leaders. Do what the good ones did. Don't do what the bad ones did. But I suppose it's possible people have never had either. So hence we need to talk about this. Let's talk about your first rule, man. Your first tip or your first sign of a bad leader: communication.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the things, Kelly, that, it's the cornerstone. Communication is the language of leadership. And that's not my quote, and I forget who says it. But it's the language of leadership. And we need to be able to ensure that when we are in a position of responsibility, and I don't want to say when we're a leader, because leadership is an action, it's not a role. And that is, if you can influence people, you can lead people, regardless if you're a janitor, regardless if you're, working at McDonald's. If you can influence people, you can lead them. But poor communication is really crucial when it comes to dealing with your workforce. And remember, when we talk about a leader compared to a manager, you manage things and you lead people. But poor communication, and this goes into a lot of different areas, right? This goes into setting direction for success, daily tasks that need to be completed, goals that'll help reach the vision, providing positive feedback, and look into this as really kind of sharing that there is a lot of things that happen in an organization that we need to be able to share. I will share anything that I know inside my organization with anybody who asks, except anything that has to deal with employee related issues. You want to talk about budget? I'll talk to you about budget. You want to learn about budget? I'll teach you about the budget. You want to learn about the whys and wheres and hows? I'm happy to have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
When we think about communication, it's the cornerstone of everything that we do. And Kelly, I want you to think about this from your standpoint as a paramedic on the truck. One of the things that happens is when we stop communicating, that's when the workforce will start to put in their own form of communication and develop their own stories, right? And, and that's usually when the fighting starts, is when the communication stops. I mean, I'm sure you've had experience with that.
Oh yeah. Well, that applies to far more than just EMS leadership. That's life in relationships. Every fight I've gotten into with my girlfriend has ultimately stemmed to bad communication, usually on my part, sometimes on hers. But
so your fault, they've all been your fault?
Huh?
They've all been your fault?
No, not all of them, but
okay.
but I'm not, when I come home and I turn it off, I'm not a good communicator. It's only when I'm on and expending mental and emotional energy on doing it that I'm a good communicator, or in a classroom. But yeah, bad communication is a killer of managers all around. I think transparency for the employees, transparency from their leadership is important, although you can't talk about everything, and transparency doesn't mean talking about other supervisors or other managers behind their back, or giving them inside info that undercuts somebody else. But I don't think managers or leaders should be reticent to share information at all. It goes back to, people ask me in cardiac arrest, I tell them that I can work a code very, very smoothly with people I've never worked with before. And it's not magic, and it's not because I'm the best code leader ever. It's because I talk a lot in a cardiac arrest. And because I talk, everyone knows where my mind is at. We're all on the same page. There is no misunderstanding. And the more you communicate, the smoother everything goes, from the running of your agency to the running of your call.
Interesting. I'd love to be able to do a show on that of how you do that. You still listening to that stupid song when you're doing the code?
I have a whole playlist of stupid songs.
All right, good.
I
So
have
number
all of
two,
them with 100 to 120 beats a minute.
number two is micromanagement. And micromanagement really is one of those skills that I think is something that is not taught, right? And there's a lot of things that micromanagement falls into. It falls into lack of self-confidence. It falls into lack of self-esteem. It falls into not trusting your workforce. It falls into wanting to have control over everything that happens. And one of the hardest things that you're going to have to do is allow the workforce the opportunity to make the mistakes and learn themselves. Now, you have overall responsibility for whatever it is that you give to someone else, but you don't need to look over their shoulder. Now, in my days, I was this person. I was a micromanager because I wanted it to be perfect. But really, the realization is the way that I do something and get to the end result. And a lot of times we don't share what the end result is. What does a perfect end result look like should be part of the detailed instructions you give somebody. But it makes no difference how I get there as long as I get there. It makes no difference, Kelly, how you get there as long as you get there. Now, the teaching will come in. If you're taking 15 steps to do a 10-step process, I can share my steps and say, you can knock off 5 steps here. But when you are a vulture and you are hanging over somebody's shoulder of the work that they're doing, they're not going to step up. They're not going to want to do that work. And they're certainly not going to work for you.
Yeah. My first boss was the world's worst micromanager. He would give you a project, and when people hear him say, got a project for you, they just weep in despair, because invariably he would give you the project and then come back and tell you how to do the project over and over and over and over. That doesn't help. My personal leadership style has always been laissez-faire. Pick good people, give them the goal, turn them loose to do their thing, because invariably you're going to find subordinates that are better at a particular task than you are. They may teach you something if you give them the free rein and the trust to get the accomplish the goal however they say fit. Micromanaging can kill a superior or a leadership versus a follower relationship. I'm struggling with my words here. I must be having a stroke. You mentioned something that is key to me. This is where micromanaging stems from: lack of self-confidence. Every single paramedic that I have ever seen that ordered his EMT around, told him to exactly what to do and how to do it, and didn't trust him to do anything or think on their own, was someone who was ultimately unsure of themselves, and they project that onto their subordinates. It takes a good deal of confidence to turn things loose and trust the people you put in the job to handle that task.
Even more importantly, the people you invited into the organization to help you be successful. You invited these people into the organization to help you be successful. Number 3 is not being empathetic. Your workforce are the people that you invited into the organization to help you be successful. When you show no concern for the employees, for their interests, you have a breeding ground for developing a toxic work environment. People don't work for you, you work for them. And the true measurement of leadership success is how engaged, satisfied, and productive the workforce is. Nothing else matters. And you have to be able to treat them like people. You don't have to like them. You don't have to invite them to your house for a beer. You don't have to, but you do have to be able to know that they're human, that they have a heart, and you need to be empathetic to the things that are challenging to them. I got to tell you, Kelly, when I was a paramedic, I had trouble with my schedule. I had trouble working paycheck to paycheck. I had problems with my partner. I had problems with my equipment. And as an EMS leader, there is no new topics that people have come into my office to say that they're having trouble. They're having problems with their paycheck. They're having problems with their equipment. They're having problems with their employee. They're having problems or with their partner. They're having problems with their schedule. So you need to care about these people, and you need to love them a little bit as well.
Yeah, exactly. And who was it? Teddy Roosevelt said, "No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care." I've worked for some bad leaders who had empathy in spades, and that was their saving grace, and made up for a whole lot of other deficiencies among these top 10 that you have, because they were empathetic. They cared about you. They just sometimes couldn't get out of their own way. but caring about your people makes up for a lot. I don't think you can be a successful leader of people without being empathetic and taking some interest in their concerns and their welfare.
Agreed. One of the things number 4 talks about is inconsistency. And there are leaders that are inconsistent. And then it goes with number 5 of leaders who show favoritism. And they're inconsistent a lot of times with the people that they're showing favoritism to. One of the things that I ask my leadership team all the time is, how have we dealt with this problem in the past? Because that's how we're dealing with this problem today. If we've not dealt with it in the past, I say to them, well, let's think about it, because this is how we're dealing with this problem in the future. Now, we can change that, but before we change and implement that, we've got to let the workforce know this is how we've dealt with it. This is what we've done in the past. However, we're going to change the process. And now as we go forward from this point, we'll deal with this situation this way. And that goes back to the communication thing, but consistency and favoritism. So 4 inconsistency, 5 showing favoritism, Kelly, they go hand in hand.
Yes, they do. And there is nothing more corrosive to a workforce than knowing that a supervisor plays favorites. And if you think it goes unnoticed by the workforce, you are sadly mistaken. I guarantee you, if there is someone that you take it easy on, or the rest of us are held to a different standard, everyone knows it. Everyone knows it, and it makes you look less effective and less honest as a leader.
Perfect.
You can't trust someone who plays favorites.
Agreed. All right, we got 5 more to go, but before we go there, Kelly, let's go ahead and take a quick break, and we want to hear from our sponsor. So we'll ask the producer, go ahead and play that spot, and we'll be back on the other side of that break.
And now a word from our sponsor.
Pulsara scales to meet your dynamic communication needs. From routine patient alerts to managing large-scale emergencies, every responder and clinician connects seamlessly. Familiar yet powerful, Pulsara streamlines your response from routine transfers to regional disasters. It's one tool every day, regardless of the event. Discover more at pulsara.com.
We are back. We are live. We are with you once again, delivering the highest quality of podcasting knowledge that we can. We are talking about the 10 signs of a bad manager. And we gave the top 5, and I really love to know what you think about it. But if we jump right back into it and go to number 6, sidestepping accountability. You are ultimately responsible for everything that happens under your span of responsibility. When you try to shift blame, that's where you break the bond of trust that you've now developed. If your people feel that you are going to throw them under a bus, you are not going to have people that you can throw under a bus. You need to be able to understand that accountability is your responsibility. And that's whatever we're put in charge of. Your accountability is everything that happens on an ambulance. Your accountability is everything that happens on your department. Your accountability is everything that happens on a project that you've been put in charge of. And you know what? You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have failures. You're going to have things that are going to happen that are going to challenge you. This is where the learning process comes in. In my book, Ultimate Leadership, 10 Rules for Success, those were the rules that I had to develop to be a good leader, because I was horrible in the beginning, Kelly. Rule number 7 is experience comes from mistakes. Mistakes come from lack of experience. Accept the fact you're going to be successful. Accept the fact you're going to make mistakes. Accept the fact you're going to fail, but you need to learn from them. That is the worst thing that happens from mistakes, is when you don't learn from the mistake. The first time you do something, it's a mistake. Second time you do the same thing, it's a choice, because now you know it's a mistake.
Yeah. First, one time is happenstance. Second is coincidence. Third time is enemy action. But you said it. You said it perfectly there, man. That you have to be accountable for your mistakes and for your errors. I think, to me, sidestepping accountability is like 5A. It falls under favoritism. Only the favorite is yourself. You have a different set of standards. You're not held to the same accountability that you hold your crews to. They see that as well. On the other hand, if you're willing to take the bullet for something, that the crew thinks that they were responsible for, most EMS crews would run through a wall for that supervisor who takes the heat for something that they did.
Yeah.
They call that in the military, they call that accountability upwards. You have to, leaders eat last, that sort of thing. That your job is to make sure that your subordinates are taken care of before your own needs. And people that practice that have well-motivated and loyal subordinates. But if you take the shortcut yourself, you get perks that they don't, you're not accountable for your mistakes. They see that and they're anything but loyal to you.
Agreed. Yeah. Number 7 is providing no vision. And I do this exercise all the time. If you close your eyes and you think about a car, you don't see the letters CAR. You actually picture a car. We are wired to think in pictures, and in the absence of that picture, we don't know where we're heading. We don't know where we're going. And your job as a leader is to provide a vision that will motivate and inspire the team. And then you need to live that vision every single day. I think the vision statement is the most important document inside an organization. Once you set a vision, then you need to be able to let everybody know where their responsibility is in reaching that vision and hold them accountable to that. And a lot of times, vision statements do not get the respect that they deserve. And when I speak in front of a group and do some leadership on this topic, I'll ask people, who has a vision statement in their organization? You see all the hands go up. And then I'll say, who can come up here and recite it for me? And then all the hands go down. But I got to tell you what, in my organization, we have a vision that we created with the workforce, with the supervisors, and it's hanging in every single station, and everybody needs to be able to quote it because I want them to live that vision every day. But without a vision, we have no idea what we're doing. We have no idea where we're going, and we certainly won't know when we're going to get there.
Yeah. Your vision statement is a statement, an articulation of the future, what you can be. If you don't have your eyes set forward, you're just going to be walking in a circle. What is it? The people who don't understand history are doomed to repeat it. You have to have some idea of where you want to be or what you want to be, what that looks like, and keep that foremost in your mind. Subordinates take their vision more or less from their leader. But we're back to the other 9 elements there. What was it that Peter Drucker said? Culture eats strategy for breakfast. If you don't get the rest of the people to buy into your vision, it's not going to work.
Right. And vision is where you're going. Strategy is how you get there. Culture is the behavior of the organization and reaching that vision. Number 8, failing to delegate. We talked about micromanaging. You can't do it all by yourself. You were hired for that position for whatever reason, but now your responsibilities change from being a clinician to being a manager, and you have to now be able to ensure that you get things done, and our job is to get things done through other people. And then we need to get the very best out of those people. There are people that want to be able to promote. There are people that want to be able to get to the next stage, right? So when you delegate, it's not only a benefit for you, but it's also a benefit for the employee who is wanting to learn something new. We go back to micromanaging. If you give somebody some empowerment and you allow them the opportunity to work on something for you, let them make their mistakes and let them get there. This is where you coach them. This is where you guide them. This is where you teach them. Failing to delegate will lead to inefficiency and a disengaged workforce, Kelly.
Yep. You and I were talking about multitasking in a previous conversation, and we're talking about people like to think that they can multitask, but they can't. You can only juggle one, maybe 2 fairly simple tasks at the same time. But invariably, people that fail to delegate think that they can handle all this stuff and none of it gets handled well. Some of it just doesn't get done, period. I think that failure to delegate, just like you said, is a part of micromanaging. You have to trust your people. And if you can't trust your people, if you're in charge of hiring, why the hell do you have people you can't trust? Right. You hired them. You got to be able to delegate, spread the workload around, because there's a whole lot in being a supervisor or an operations manager at an EMS agency. You cannot do it all by yourself.
And I think this goes hand in hand with it for number 9, failing to grow the workforce. We have to be able to ensure, the people who are coming to work for us is the people we invited into this organization. If they could sit home and eat cheese puffs and put their feet up and watch TV or go on vacation every single day, they would do that, right? But they have to work because they have to be able to take care of their family, pay their mortgage, send their kids to school, whatever it is, right? But these folks want to be able to learn. Being part of us, part of being a servant leader is to ensure that your employees are getting to the next level. Remember, if the employees do not grow, the organization will not grow. And your job as a leader, your job as a manager is to make sure that you are allowing your team to move to the next level. When they're stagnant, when they're uninspired, we'll create a toxic environment.
I think every agency leader's goal should be to help their employees outgrow their system. And then second part of that is grow along with them, grow along with them. And when you write your protocols, you want your employees to outgrow your protocols. Then you loosen up those protocols to reflect that greater trust, and that sort of thing. If the leader can grow with the subordinates, you've got a healthy culture at your agency.
Agreed. And then finally, number 10 is there are managers and leaders who just show unprofessional behavior. Some of the things that I do not allow in my organization is for the leaders to talk about the workforce. They're not going to say bad things about them. They're not going to tell jokes about them. They're not going to spread rumors about them. They need to be the utmost of professional when it comes to members of the workforce. You are ultimately responsible for your team's success. When you model poor behavior, it sets the stage for everybody else to have poor behavior. And once you start it, you can't stop it, right? So you have to be able to put your foot down and ensure that there's no gossip. And one of the things that I would do is if I heard gossip, I was tracking it down to the person who did it. Hey, who told you that? Well, Kelly told me that. Kelly, who told you that? Well, Chris told me that. Chris, who told you that? I don't remember. Well, then it was you, and you better stop it. I'm not having it in the organization. Unprofessional behavior, telling inappropriate jokes, making inappropriate comments has no place in the workforce for a successful organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is one I can condemn that and do so because I've seen the harm it can cause directly, because I have been guilty of that, mostly in lapses of decorum among people that I am comfortable with and trust, forgetting sometimes that someone impressionable may be watching, looking at me as a guide of how to act. And I've fallen down on the job for that. And that's been pointed out to me in the past and something I try to be better at. But you can't talk smack about your employees or gossip or just be a jerk in front of anyone, not even in front of. What is it? Ethics is how you behave when no one's looking. You have to be professional at all times, or people see it. People see it, and you can claim to be a professional, and then the one moment where you're unprofessional, that comes to define you. But you got 10 good signs here, the signs of a bad manager. So I think Buddy, or who was it that asked for this?
Oh no, Buddy was asking about the.
Oh, Buddy was asking about Jimmy Spicer. But
this came out of New Mexico. I won't use the person's
our listener, name. There you go. If you can hold this up and go, yep, that's my manager. Yep, you got a bad manager. On the other hand, maybe we'll talk in a future podcast about 10 signs of a bad employee, because what's that great Raylan Givens quote? If you wake up in the morning and you met an a-hole, you met an a-hole. But if you met a-holes all day, you're the a-hole.
I guess that's philosophy. I don't know that I could subscribe to it, but
it is.
All right, Kelly, we do have that, but I do have that list as well of the 10 signs of a bad employee. Yeah. Maybe we will do that on the next show, and we'll just close this out. But for now, it's about that time of the week. Let's go.
We'd like to thank you for joining Chris and I on this episode of Inside EMS. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes, and we'll catch you next week.